Hey, everybody, welcome to the Cabinet Maker Profit System podcast. Today's kind of a serious one. You guys know that once a year, I do a special mental health episode, and that's this episode. We've been very fortunate to get Joe Gardzina on to talk to us, and he's an addictions specialist. The topic of today is how to start the conversation when you see addiction. And I'm going to be taking that down three different paths with him, and one of those paths is going to surprise you beyond all belief. Let's see how that goes. Talk to you on the other side of the episode. Mr. Joe Gardzina, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to be here with you. I'm a little
Thanks.
nervous.
Yeah, well, hey, that's okay. That's all right. We'll talk. I'll talk you through it. How about that?
Well,
It's your show.
it's my show, but it's my show, but usually I'm talking about things I know. But with you, I'm in a world I don't know. Because today we're here to talk about how to start the conversation when you see addiction.
Sure.
And I gave you a premise before the show that, maybe 2 years ago now, one of my clients had one of his employees at 50 become addicted to meth. And so I started doing a series here on the show where around Thanksgiving, towards the end of the year, we've got lots of family events happening. We bring in specialists like yourself to talk about it.
No,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. It's a difficult conversation to have. So I think it's important that we talk about it, particularly this time of the year, as much as we can.
Yeah. And awkward. For
Yeah,
me,
it's awkward.
it's awkward.
Mhm.
How do you bring it up? How do you cross that boundary between boss and taking care of it? Anyways, let me back up for a second.
Sure.
Joe Gardzina, who the heck are you? And how is it you come to be speaking to all of these forward-facing business owners in the finished wood trades?
Well, my name is Joe Gardzina. I'm a licensed chemical dependency counselor. I've been licensed since 1996 here in Texas. We're treatment providers, so we provide outpatient substance abuse treatment for adults and for adolescents in an outpatient setting. We also run a medical detox facility about an hour south of us that also has a residential component for adult males and females. So we've kind of, our business model is not that complicated. We just stay out of Houston. So we just kind of have Houston surrounded. So, but yeah, we've been working on and off. I mean, specifically with this population for 20, going on 30 years. So we feel like we've got a pretty knowledgeable team and really good staff to help folks down here.
And you said you started in, I don't want to use the wrong word, but working in halfway houses when you were a younger man.
Yeah, I was much younger, much as back when I still knew everything. I was 23, 24 years old and really started kind of working in that environment. And I really just didn't like what I saw. I just felt like it was really abusive. And I felt like not so much physically, but, I just felt like there had to be a better way to get sober and there had to be a better way to engage people. Because in those days, it was very, sit down, shut up. Obviously, you don't know what you're talking about because you're here. So we'll talk to you in 2 weeks. You just need to sit here and listen, which is all fine and good for tons of people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So we're always trying to find ways where we can connect with people that are outside of being overbearing.
Yeah. I'll be the first to admit, Joe, and I said this earlier, I'm out of my element right now. But the reason I'm doing this is because I care about my audience. And one of the stresses I hear is first of all, it's hard to find good people. But even more than that, we have a duty of care to everybody around us. And if we see addiction, and I've seen it in my companies, I don't even know how to bring it up. Is it my right? Is it my place? How do I say it?
Right.
And no, I get it. How do I recognize addiction? And then how do I ease into that conversation and try out of the goodness of my heart to guide somebody to that?
Well, and I think it's a balancing act. I mean, I think I'm a little different in that I run a business. I run a business that's focused on addiction, but I have to employ people too. And I have, we have people that are sort of drawn to this field that are newly sober, that have been sober for a couple of years, who really want to give back, who really probably aren't as stable as they should be in their recovery. So we've got to keep a real close eye on them too. So I deal with the same stuff that your people do all the time.
I hadn't thought of that. So
Yeah,
somebody who goes through recovery decides that, hey, I love this so much, I want to
right.
help others in recovery.
Sure. Yeah, and that's fantastic. But that doesn't, just because you made some good decisions doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be an asset in the field. So,
Mm,
um, so yeah, I mean, it's a difficult conversation to have. The thing that I've learned over the years is trust in your gut. I can't tell you how many employers I have who call me and they say, golly, this happened and that happened, and I can't believe I allowed it to happen because I saw it so long ago. You
mm,
know, I saw it with it's the basic things. It's the basic employee employer relationship. It's,
mm.
when your stable employee starts to come in late, starts to look disheveled, starts to, borrow money from peers, kind of disappears for
Ah,
periods of time. All those things that we know intrinsically are not normal behavior for this employee. We're
right,
human beings. We're trained to deny things and we're trained to ignore things that could possibly hurt us. And when losing good employees can hurt us, and a lot of times we don't pay attention to that like we should.
right. Yeah. Well, how do you, if one of the things that has happened to me is people deny,
Right.
that there's like, I don't have a problem, you got a problem. And then
Sure.
now I have a problem that
Right.
that we brought up
Right.
the problem, not to use a circular argument, but if I say to somebody, you've got a problem, they just come back with vehemence. I don't often get to use that word in a sentence,
Yeah.
but they
Uh,
come back aggressively like, well, I'm sure we've all heard it.
Right. Oh yeah, we hear it all the time. I mean, we have people that are referred to us who have absolutely no clue why I'm here. I don't know. My wife's upset. My employer's upset. We do a lot of testing, not just psychological testing and substance abuse screening, but we do a lot of drug testing as well,
Mm, mm,
just to keep people accountable. I think it's important. When you think about addiction, part and parcel of addiction is being dishonest with those that you're closest to, and that includes mom and dad and aunt and uncle and employers.
right.
Employers like us are not immune from that behavior that addicts put out there, and we've got to be aware of it. It's difficult. um I know that for me, I've sort of had to find a balance between being empathetic, um to the point where it affects the business in a negative way, and then I have
Yeah.
to work through my empathy, and it's time for us to make a decision. uh I
That decision sounds final though. That we've gone
yeah,
now to the point where it's not salvageable.
sure,
So you can't save it.
absolutely. I mean, obviously in our type of work, if you're actively using, and I'm sure with you guys as well, you have guys that transport things, you have guys that have licensures, national and state level licensures. You can't have your employees riding around under the influence of drugs or alcohol in any way, shape, or form, and we can't either.
Yeah.
So once we identify it, we give folks an opportunity to change, whether that be, outpatient or inpatient, or if they need detox, then we don't self-refer and send them to us. That would be weird. But we refer them to other facilities and
Yeah.
give them the opportunity to get better. And then we monitor that closely.
Let me I really want to dig into your experience and I want to get your best how to for
Mhm.
my listeners. So let's paint a picture. We walk into a warehouse that is a manufacturing shop. There's machines moving everywhere. There's a forklift, beep, 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 right? There's cutting blades. There's all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of noise. There's sawdust in the air. There's stacks of wood in the corner. There's people moving around. Everybody seems to know what they're doing. The business owner walks onto the floor of this shop, and there's Jerry. Jerry has recently started borrowing money from people, showing up late, missing work. Something's just wrong. It's time for me to have that conversation with Jerry. And so I walk up to him. Sorry, let me back up. It's time for me to have that conversation with Jerry. Joe, can you tell me what I need to do right there?
Absolutely. First of all, have a witness with you. That's important.
Oh, wow.
Uh, yeah, have a secondary person with you, because just because you know that their behavior is excessive doesn't really exempt you from what they could or could not do in the future. So always have a witness whenever
Huh.
you deal with anybody, HR, but particularly this population.
Mm,
Um, I the the hardest thing to do is to make that first step, and that first step is, listen, I hired you because I believe in you. can we go sit down? I want to talk through some things with you, and just have an honest conversation.
Mm,
Uh, let's talk about 3 years ago when we hired you in, what your life looked like, and the employee that we hired,
right.
which was high functioning, stable, saving money, being responsible.
No drama.
Over, yeah, no drama. Over the past couple of years, and particularly over the last whatever, we've really seen some changes that are concerning not only to us, but people that we work with and people that we're accountable to. Anytime you can make it not about you, that's a good thing. So not only do we have concerns, but people that we're accountable to have concerns as well.
Okay.
And we really like to be able to talk through what we feel like is going on with you. We definitely want to drug test you, and that's uncomfortable for a lot of people because it sounds accusatory.
So you're just as blunt as that. You're just like, we want to
Absolutely.
drug test you.
Absolutely. And what amazes me is that people are so blunt and direct in every other area of their life. But when it comes down to the possibility of hurting somebody's feelings, they kind of lose their aggressiveness. And it's like, you really have to view this as somebody who has the potential to shut down your business. This person has the ability to affect your business in a very negative way. And while that's no different than any other employee that you employ, the chances of that are much higher. The chances of them having a wreck, the chances of them not following policy and procedure, the chances of them hurting somebody else are
Driving
so much
impaired
higher.
or getting in the way of the foreclosure. Can I ask you something? And this might be my answer because I don't see myself in that situation. You as a professional might go, actually, Dom, you got a whole list of other issues, but
Right.
I'm not addicted to anything.
Sure.
You say we want to drug test you. The first thing I'm going to say is why?
We always refer back to our policy and procedure manual. When we hired you in, it's part of our policy and procedure manual. It's part of our HR. It's part of our intake process when we bring you in. And we're in Texas, so we're a little rowdy in Texas anyway. So yeah, I mean, we always defer back to, it can never be because I said so, and it can never be because I feel like you're doing something super shady. But it's a policy and procedure issue. We're going to be doing random UAs today. We need to send you to the lab now. And you don't have the opportunity to, if you choose not to do that, we presume that you're dirty, and then you're terminated. So it has to be that direct.
It has to be, you've set boundaries up around this. You've got to do this, or now,
right.
I'm going to have to ask this. And again, I come to this with ignorance, as you know.
Sure.
Are there states where drug testing is not mandatory or not, how do I say it, enforceable?
Let me put it to you this way. So there are states that allow use of marijuana: Colorado, Massachusetts. There's a couple other ones.
All of Canada.
Yeah, I mean, ARCs. We have state licensure, but it's also tied to federal funding. And I don't know how your licensure works, but I would assume that you have like state license, and then you have, you have DOT related things. You're transporting things. Federal law always supersedes state law, period. So if your business has anything to do, works in any plant that's supervised by DOT, ever has a truck that goes into a plant and then leaves, or goes into a supervised area and leaves, you're under DOT rules.
Okay, so we've got something to fall back on. And so in Canada, they call them provinces. In the United States, they're called states, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, so there's different rules there. But what you're saying is at the federal level, that's what supersedes it. So I've always got something as an employer to go back on.
Absolutely. You can always point to federal law. We get the calls a lot because I have a certification through the Department of Transportation. So we get calls from a lot of truck drivers that say, hey, I live in California and I tested positive and they took my commercial driver's license away. And it's like, well, who issued your commercial driver's license is the federal government. That's why they took it away. So you always have to answer to federal law, not state law. Always supersedes state law. So we point to that a lot because we try to stay out of it, and we try to make it, we try to hold people as accountable as we can. But as soon as you allow somebody think about anybody who's cornered, think about anybody who you're trying to take away the thing that they've discovered that makes them feel better. and the thing that they're willing to fight for, and the thing that they're willing to sacrifice their career with you for, and their family relationships and everything else, they're willing to give it up. They're willing to try as hard as they can to protect that. So you have to understand that when you're having that conversation, that's who you're talking to. You're not talking to the person that you hired. You're talking to the person that you hired is not there anymore. Um, and we've got to do everything that we can do to get them back, and recovery is possible. And we see it happen all the time, that folks are given the opportunity to get better. But I can't want you to get better, Dom, more than you do. And I find it with employers a lot that, well, I helped him pay his rent, and I helped him with his kids, and I helped him with this, and I helped him with that. And he promised me he wasn't going to use anymore, and he's still using.
Right.
Well, of course he is, because there's no consequences for his behavior. If I have people that are making things easy for me and I can continue in a negative behavior, what's my motivation to stop? So employers have to get out of the way.
So we have to push to the point where we might lose this person, man or woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so hard.
It is so incredibly hard because, well, you're a business owner as well. It's hard Absolutely. Because first, it's hard to find good people. Hey, listen, first it's hard to find people.
Sure.
Then it's hard to find good people.
Right.
And so maybe we ignore things every once in a while.
I think yeah. And then after something happens, we kind of piece it all back together and like, oh man, I really saw this coming. And as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as people that are out there trying to do this thing on a daily basis, it's the same gut instinct that you have in business. If something's right, it's right. If something's wrong, it's wrong. Regardless of where you're getting that behavior from, regardless if it's somebody that you trust and you care about and you've mentored and you've trained and you've spent a lot of money on to have them employed by you, they still pose a risk to your business, and that's how you have to view it.
Can they still work in my company if they've tested positive?
Absolutely. Well, here's the deal. If they've tested positive and they have moved forward and they're willing to do something about it, and they're in an outpatient level of care, or they've been to residential and now they're back with you, absolutely they can. But somebody who tests positive and then you put them back out on the line and say, shame, don't do it again, I think that's really, really risky. Until it's, because if somebody's willing to use to that point where they'll put their career in jeopardy, they'll put your business in jeopardy.
Well,
just as easily.
And tragically, we see it when somebody's impaired and they're driving and they hit another vehicle, and that story just gets worse fast. There's just so much tragedy there. Unfortunately, I just had this conversation with somebody today, and it was a difficult conversation for me as a business coach, but I had to say, look, you're about to face some pain. You're either facing the pain of making the decision now, or you're going to face pain later because you haven't made the decision, but pain is coming. It wasn't certainly not what I wake up every day wanting to have as a conversation with somebody, but these are executives, serious people running serious businesses who rely on me for honesty, right? Okay, so let me do this now. I want to back up. Remember a second ago, we just walked onto the shop floor and we had all those moving pieces. Now we take that business owner and he walks through the shop, he hops in his truck, and he drives home for Thanksgiving dinner. So I want to make this personal now. How to start the conversation when you see addiction at home. So the reason we do this around Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving, Christmas time, is because families are together, and that's when you see your crazy brother-in-law or your sister or your son or daughter.
Right.
Joe, I don't have federal DOT regulations hanging over my daughter or my son or my crazy brother-in-law, but I still care.
Sure.
How do I have that conversation as a dad, an uncle, a brother, a wife, a mother?
Just a concerned family member.
Yeah.
I mean, in my experience, the struggle has always been that when you tell a family member that you're disappointed in them, there's always that chance that they could take that in a negative way and somehow beat you up with that, or make you feel guilty for what you're saying. And I can't believe you would say something like that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I would. Yeah.
Who are you to talk to me? I saw you at the bar 2 weeks ago. I saw they had to drive you home.
Mm,
Who are you to confront me when I've seen you do the same thing? Okay.
mm.
And our experience, and then we work with families on a daily basis, is you are free to behave however you choose, but these are the rules in this house. Okay. You can behave however you want to, but you're not going to smoke weed here. You're not going to come to our house loaded and under the influence. And as long as we have that clear understanding, when you do have to take a stand and say you can't be here, it's not a news flash. They've heard it before. You've got to have those boundaries.
I'm so sorry. And you got to talk to, this is not free counseling, but I have a heavy heart right now imagining telling my daughter, let's just say she has some substance abuse problem, telling her she can't be home. The alternative is the kind of scary thing that I don't ever want to deal with. But are you saying I've got to go there?
I don't know. I don't know any other way to effectively address it. I mean, how do you ever set a boundary if you allow people to run over you all the time? I mean, you can never hold people accountable unless they know what the rules are. And then once they violate the rules, then it's a reminder to you why you had the rules in the first place, right? I'll tell you, and I'll share this with you. So I've been sober also for a number of years. I got sober when I was 22.
Congratulations.
So it's been 30 years this year. And the most loving thing that my parents ever did for me, was tell me to go away. And I tell that to my mom, and she gets emotional and she's upset, but we did everything for you. And you know what? You did. But I was an addict that was really sick in my addiction. I was just drinking like a crazy person. And I'll never forget my parents meeting me at the door and saying, we've had this conversation. You know that we love you, but we can't have you here.
Wow.
And that was it. And guess what? After months and months and months of trying to get sober, 4 months later, I got sober, and I've been sober ever since.
Oh, good.
That's because
it's just hard as a parent to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say this, and somebody's going to text me or email me and get mad.
Sure.
No offense, but it's a bit easier sending your son away than your little girl. And
absolutely.
I just recorded that. Go ahead, guys, light me up. But all I'm being is honest. I said it and I stand by it. I said it.
Right. No, I get it. And I mean, it's always more difficult when it's people that you have an emotional connection with. And just like a family member, just like an employee that you've worked with and worked with and worked with, these are hard decisions to have, and if it was easy, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But
true.
My experience has been that the less dialogue that goes on, the better off the person is who's trying to hold the using person accountable. You can't get into negotiations about if it's okay to get loaded at work or not. Of course it's not okay to get loaded at work. What if I just have one beer in the vehicle? Who cares? Right? That's not a negotiation.
That is zero. Yeah.
That can never, ever, ever happen. So, you can't, once you find yourself negotiating, you've already lost.
So it has to be very directive.
Got to be very direct. It's got to be very black and white. Absolutely.
I'm looking at my notes here because I wrote the steps down when we talked about it on the shop floor. You started with a compliment, opening up the conversation. You get the person off the floor. So you move them away from an environment where they could potentially be embarrassed or cause a scene or be in dangerous equipment.
Sure.
Then you have an open conversation and you started by saying, we've seen changes. This is probably where it deviates. On the shop floor, I can say, we want to do a drug test. If it's my daughter, son, whatever family relationship is, I have a different path, but I still have to have the conversation because they're going down a self-destruction path that is not, there's no coming back unless they fix it.
No, there's not. And I mean, until you can help them identify that their behavior is a problem, because, addicts and alcoholics go through life thinking that nobody knows what's going on with them. Because they're selfish and self-centered. It's about them and changing the way that they feel. And that's just inherent to addiction. It's not that people are crazy self-centered, but when they're using, they are. It's really, I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. And you have to understand that when you're talking to an addict, that's what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
They don't really care about you. They don't care about your bottom line. And you have to drive a truck through that, as difficult as that situation is, and just be direct and just tell the truth. Because the more direct you are and the more truthful you are, and you can give specific examples, there's nothing left to talk about. It becomes their problem, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you get into a negotiation, it becomes y'all's problem, and that's not okay. You know, you're not the one with the problem; they are.
So you might laugh at me, and and this next statement might sound very business coachy, but I always want the solution. So we've got Jerry on the floor, or we've got Jerry, my son or daughter. Actually, that name works for both, I guess. Do I drive them to some sort of facility? Do I make an appointment with them to a counselor, or do they have to do it? Because
I mean, I don't. I'm of the belief that it doesn't really matter how you get to treatment, right? As long as you do it, as long as they follow through. You give them, if they need a ride and you need to help them, then that's fine. Who
yeah,
cares?
but I mean, I'm thinking in my head they don't want to go. I'm like, well, you're booked, you got to go, and just don't show up.
Well, then they can no longer work for you.
Right. And in the case of my son or daughter,
they can't be
in the
until
house.
they've decided to change their behavior and take responsibility for it. Then you have to make the decision if you're okay with that behavior in your home, and if you are you willing to deal with those consequences?
Yeah.
I
It's
know I
interesting.
make it sound super simple.
It's not.
But it's not. It's not.
And we've had other professionals on here talking about the same thing. That you have to draw a line in the sand. I've had previous addicts who are also counselors. I'm not sure what the word is. One of them is a friend of mine. He works out with me at the gym.
Right.
There is a transition facility, and again, I don't know the word, that part of their recovery is you've got to start going to the gym, and the gym they go to is mine. And so I happen to be surrounded by a lot of those people. And then we've also had Because I Love You, BILY, which is a program. And they've all said the same thing. At some point, you've got to say you just can't come here anymore unless you're on the program.
Right. And
it's not just you saying it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times when we're holding people accountable, we're scared that they're going to think that we don't care about them or we don't love them. And they're not important to us. And it's really the absolute opposite is true. It takes a lot of guts to confront somebody about that kind of behavior. So in my view, it's probably the most loving, supportive, employer centric thing that you could do. Is it really shows that you care about them. Whether they choose to accept that or not and move forward is not your responsibility. It's your responsibility to make the solution available. But like I said earlier, Dom, you can't want it more for an employee than they do.
Yeah.
Because that's a fundamentally screwed up equation.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go in a third direction now. That's actually awkward for me. There's a listener right now. I don't know who they are, but they have an addiction and they know it.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not be coffee.
Right.
But maybe they're not actually drinking coffee at the shop. And they recognize that they have an addiction, but they don't know what to do. What's their first step? Somebody listen, they're a business owner and they're hiding their own addiction. How do we help them? Because I'm reaching out to whoever you are listening right now. We love you. This is for you. So Joe, help us here.
However, I mean, we get calls from all over the United States all the time. We'd be happy to help you find a facility in your area. We have a toll-free number that's available to us in Texas, which is 855 TOADAPT. So it's 1-855 to adapt. Yeah, and we can, we offer every single level of care. So if we screen you and, we'll make a determination what we feel like needs to happen with you, and then we'll refer you to that corresponding facility that's in your area.
So they just reach out, get them to reach out. Is what you're saying? Reach out to.
Yeah, just reach out. We have a ton of information on our website, 2 websites, which is adaptprograms.com. ADAPTprograms.com, and then Brazos Place is our inpatient facility. So it's BRAZOS place.org.
Right.
So we can help you. Just give us a call. We'll be happy to do whatever we can for you.
Now, thank you for that. Let me take it up a level. We've got people listening in South Africa. We got people listening in Argentina and Australia, New Zealand, and boring old United States and Canada.
Right.
And I hope I didn't miss any country. And if I did, folks, I apologize. But what kind of professional do I go talk to, or who do I call? What kind of agency do I look for?
Generally, in Argentina, and it's worldwide, You have licensed substance use disorder treatment facilities.
Okay.
You don't need to go to a behavioral health hospital. That's for people that have mental health issues, but they don't market themselves that way, so they can generate more revenue. So they call them behavioral health. Substance use disorder treatment facility
Okay.
is really
what we
who you
look
want to
at.
look for. Yeah. But you don't want to go to a psychiatrist initially, because we don't know if it's mental health or it's substance abuse until you stop using. Once we can get you to stop using, then we can determine, are you depressed? Are you anxious? What are some of the reasons that you're using in the first place? But yeah, just find a real quality license. And there's a lot of, I know in the United States, SAMHSA has a website where you can just type in your zip code and it'll pull up every single facility that's in your area.
I'm sorry, Joe, what's the name of that?
It's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So it's SAMHSA.org.
Folks, just type into your Google machine
Yeah,
substance
just
abuse
type in,
counseling,
yeah,
and
just type in
yeah, you'll
substance
find
abuse
something.
near me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want to
It's
make light of it. I mean, I joke a lot, but I'm not making light of this. There's somebody out there, I don't know who you are, but you need to hear this right now. So
sure.
I'm having the tough
Yeah.
conversation. I'm going to say, hey, person listening who I don't know who you are, you're doing a great job running your company. And of course, you're under a lot of stress. Come over here to the side and listen to this podcast on your own. I'm following your steps, Joe.
Right.
I want to open the conversation by saying, I've seen some changes in your behavior and the stress or something is starting to get to you. Those changes aren't healthy, and we need you to go see somebody and talk about it.
And they're affecting our business.
And your changes are affecting the business or
your behavior.
Your behavior. I'm sorry.
Yeah, your behavior is affecting our business and your ability to have a job with us moving forward.
Well, this is the owner I'm talking to. I'm talking to the people listening to the show.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, same thing. I mean, we just want to be direct. We want to tell the truth, and you don't want to hem and haw with this kind of stuff. I mean, the reality of the situation is we've had this year 9 people, not people that were actively in treatment with us, but people that we were associated with in the recovery community very closely, who are now dead. They've passed on. From alcohol, from heroin, which is huge in our area, fentanyl, obviously, because we're so close to Mexico that when you're that close to the source, you're gonna see stuff a whole lot. Yeah, it's everywhere. So it's everywhere. So I mean, the real life consequences of this stuff we see every day. And you just don't want to be the person that reacts. You want to try and get ahead of it, because a reaction, you don't want to bury your employee, and ignoring it essentially is what you're going to wind up doing. Nobody's got time for that, right?
Well, I appreciate this. This is a tough conversation. Like we've now done 3 different scenarios. We've got Jerry on the floor, Jerry, my brother-in-law, my son or my daughter, and then I'm Jerry, let's just say. Sure. There's a path, but you've got to somehow we have to get those people to that first step, because they're dealing with something that they need outside resources for.
Yeah, it's new. And the thing that I would tell your listeners, Dom, the most important thing is just trust your gut, and don't doubt yourself. We know when something's not right. We know. It's that same skill that's kept us ahead of the game in business. It's the same skill that's kept your folks focused on growing and serving more people long term. It's that same inherent feeling that you have when when something threatens your business. It, and you have to address it regardless of the level of your relationship with that person.
Yeah. Okay. Joe, thank you. This is such an important, thing that we do on the show, because this people come to this show to learn how to run a business, and, cabinetry and furniture making and architecture, all that stuff. But we bring this topic in for a specific reason, and I'm glad you shed light on this. If somebody wants to find you in this big wide world, I know you mentioned a few places to find you, but would you mind repeating it?
Yeah, sure. It's 855 and then the 2 ADAPT. So it's TO and then ADAPT is our toll-free number. adaptprograms.com. You can connect with us through our website, or brazosplace.org. .org is our residential detox website. And you can email me directly if you choose. I get hundreds of emails all the time. CEO@adaptprograms.com. And
Perfect.
if I don't know the answer, I'll certainly track somebody down who does.
Love it.
Yeah.
Hey, explain this to me. Behind
Hmm?
your right shoulder, leave your drama outside. Is this a counseling office? Like you see patients in
Yeah,
this?
this is no, I don't see patients anymore, unfortunately. So trust me, there's some days I wish that I was just running groups and doing individual sessions. Now my clients are my staff. Um, yeah, leave your drama outside and sort of a crybaby face, and
Yeah, yeah.
I like stop, and all the stuff that makes sense to me in my head. I don't know that you know
Well, it's just
my
I've seen the
employees get it.
drama. I've seen the drama of
Yeah,
addicts, and they
yeah.
create drama. They thrive on drama. I don't know why, but it's just a little drama generating machine.
Mhm.
Drama,
Well,
drama.
it's because it keeps people away. It
Oh,
keeps people from holding them accountable. So the more dramatic I can be, and the more I can get you to look over here, the greater my chance is that you aren't going to look where the real problem is. So
really?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So
It's
it's a
just
tool.
inherent. Yeah, it's a complete manipulation tool.
Huh. That should
Yeah.
have been our topic. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We can do that on another show. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I talk about running a business without drama. You want to run a
Sure.
boring business. Boring is
Boring.
profitable. Boring is
Yeah.
fine,
Yeah. It's
especially in a
okay.
business, especially in a business with moving machinery and parts. And, when I sign a contract to build somebody's X, Y, or Z, I'm making a promise with my name attached. I want that to be boring and delivered on time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Period. No drama, no drama necessary for a quality job.
Okay.
And
Well, I love it.
that's how you get repeat business.
That's
You know?
great. Yeah.
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 No drama.
Well, Joe, thank you very much for being on the show. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day.
But thank you
All
so
right.
much. Bye
Thanks.
bye.
Bye bye. Well. Joe, thank you very much for joining us here today to talk about this. Just, it's such a heavy topic, but we need to do it. As I mentioned, folks, I do this around Thanksgiving/Christmas, this time of year, because families are coming together. This is the time when stress is high because we're around people we love, but we don't necessarily see them all the time. And maybe somebody in your family, you've recognized that they have addiction. Or as we started with that first scenario, maybe somebody on your floor, in your company, you recognize addiction in them, or maybe you're going through some addiction challenges, whatever it is. I'm going to start the conversation. There's experts who can help you go through that. Whatever it is, just know that I come at this with all the love in my heart and trying to add value wherever I can. I hope you got a ton out of this. And I pray that you don't have to, that you're not dealing with this. But if you are, I hope you got some process to take there. I took notes from what Joe was saying. Let's use the analogy, or I'm sorry, let's use the situation where you walk onto the shop floor and you need to talk to Jerry. So what Joe said is, open up the conversation with him, have a witness with you, and start with a compliment. Hey, Jerry, great to see you. Always do great work, etc. Get them off the floor. So move them into another place, like go to the lunchroom or go into the office where it could be quiet, confidential, and private. Open up the conversation, but then also be direct with all the love in your heart. Jerry, we've seen some changes. We want to give you a drug test. As we heard from Joe, they're probably going to deny it. They're probably going to not admit it. They're probably going to point the finger back at you, but you have to be strong. It doesn't matter to me whether you're in the United States or in South America or in Canada listening to this. There are resources available to you wherever you are, and there are laws that are in place to protect the health and safety of everybody on the shop floor, everybody that's an installer, everybody that's in the paint booth, everybody that's our driver, delivery person in the office, all of those places. So lean on those tools that you have as your right and your responsibility as an employer, and do something to help this person. Is that person going to leave your company? Maybe. I don't know the answer. Is that person going to get better? Well, they won't if we don't help. Yeah, this is an episode I don't actually have an answer. I've got more questions than answers. If you find yourself in that same situation where you've got questions but not answers, then go reach out to somebody like Joe. These substance abuse professionals are everywhere. And they're waiting to hear from you so that they can help. As you can tell, Joe's just a great guy, wants to help however he can. He's walked that path himself and he's seen what it looks like. So just know that there's people out there to help you. All right, folks, let's move along in the episode here. As you know, the next segment is questions and answers with Dom. I'm going to take questions from you guys, from all of you, and I'm going to answer them here live. And that's what's coming up next. We'll see you there. Hi, everybody. Today's question and answer with Dom comes from Harold Burden. Now, Harold is a member of the Contractor Strategy Group on Facebook. If you're not a member, you should join. This question was posted by him a little while ago, and Harold runs Build Right Home Pros in Sheffield, Illinois. They do siding, windows, and decks. His big question is, how do I get the right customer every time? Well, let's answer that. Hi, we're answering a question here for Harold Burden from Build Right Home Pros in Sheffield, Illinois. He does siding, windows, and decks. His question is, how do I get the right customers every time? Well, that's a marketing question, and it's a good question. Thanks for posting that. So my first question back to you, and I'd like you to think about this as you're driving around or walking the dog or wherever you're listening to this podcast. How do you get incoming leads right now? So how does your business get notified of new business coming in right now? How are you going out to the market to ask for new business? And I'm going to ask you only two things. Is it random or is it targeted? So do you have this magic swirling box of I don't know what that spits out leads? Or do you have a targeted proactive system for bringing in leads? That's the very first thing. Now, what we need is data and information. I hope that you're not in the world of random. However, most people are. They rely on word of mouth. They rely on referrals. The problem with that for getting the right customer every time is that a bad customer is just as likely to refer to you as a good customer is. And we don't know when customers are going to refer each other to talk to us. And even when they do, it doesn't line up with when you and I need more work, right? So the first thing we need is we need data. We need some good information, just some basic information. And here's the basic information. You don't even need to go pull any reports for this. Where do the best jobs for you come from right now? And what I want you to do is sit down with a map of your city, of your town, of your state, wherever your territory is that you do work. Where do your best jobs come from now? Do you know where those best jobs come from? Plot them on a map. So if it's this neighborhood, if it's this type of general contractor who gives you sub work, list them. If it's architects or government officials or city planners that give you work, list them. Whatever it is, I want you to create that list. Once you have the list, you have the power, because now I can move you from being random in your marketing to targeted in your marketing. So item number one, let's make this a small SOP for how to get the right customers every time. Number one, make a heat map and plot it on paper. And so, like I say, that heat map is either a neighborhood that you really do great work in and you know it's profitable and it's close by, or it could be a list of people that you like to do work with, right? Number two, come up with a plan of attack. Notice very specifically my language. Come up with a plan of attack. If you want to have targeted leads and you want to bring the right customer to you, you just can't wait for randomness and hope and prayers and the winds of benefit to bring you things. You got to have a plan of attack. You have to look at that market. You have to look at that list and say, how am I going to get business from that list, from that map? And again, is it a list of homes? Is it a list of home addresses? Well, that's easy, by zip code or by postal code or by neighborhood or by whatever it is, right? Is it a list of general contractors? Is it a list of architects, government officials, designers, or city planners? Whatever your list is, come up with that plan of attack for them. Item number three, go! Exclamation mark. Just go. Target them with ads, with signage, with direct mail, with postcards, with letters, by meeting them in networking. Once you've identified who your perfect target is, go after that perfect target. It's that simple. How do I get the right customers every time? I can't hope and pray. Those are for other things in our life, hoping and praying. In business, you have to have a plan of attack and then go after them. And the final step, this little SOP for how to get the right customers every time, test and measure. See what works in your marketing. See what doesn't work in your marketing. Do more of what works. Do less of what doesn't. And that's how you become a proactive business owner who grows the right kind of business with the right kind of customers that brings you the right kind of jobs. Harold, thank you so much for your question. I appreciate it. If you want to leave a question for this segment of the show, it's called Questions and Answers with Dom. Just go to speakpipe.com/ask Dom. and you can leave your message there. It's super easy. You press a button, you record, it automatically comes to me. Thanks very much, Harold. Everybody else, have a great day.